Hace una semana nada más te mostraba la primera parte de este fascinante material que tenemos de Ferrari en cuanto a cómo trabaja el equipo en la parte de combustibles, en la parte de lubricantes, cómo hacer más efectivo el motor, cómo hacerlo más efectivo en cuanto a rendimiento, pero también en cuanto a potencia. Todo eso te propuse ver la segunda parte de nuestro programa del día de hoy y esa es la propuesta para este último bloque de nuestro programa. Ferrari y todo lo que tiene que ver con la preparación para ser uno de los equipos más competitivos en la historia de la Fórmula 1 en este momento en nuestro Power Sport, cuando seguimos, por supuesto, acelerando a fondo aquí en Speed. Ahí nos vamos.
In 1943, Ferrari moved his operation down the road to Maranello, where the first road cars to bear his name were built 4 years later. The Scuderia remains the only team to have raced in Formula One continuously since its inception in 1950.
My father was a very tough person, but was able to give to every person in Ferrari, from the last mechanic to the team manager to the general manager, the right motivation to push every day.
Apart from one relatively brief period, the partners have worked together since the Formula One Championship began and have won over a third of the races they've entered in all competitions.
My father was looking to a partner, and fuel and oil has always been a very important part of engine development. The materials you can use on the engine is strictly linked to the fuel you are using, to the oil you are using in your engine. So my father was convinced of this when he was team manager of Alfa Romeo in the 20s.
Shell was crucial in our victories, particularly in the last, let me say, 15 years, where the competition has been very tight, 1/10, 2/10. The work has been crucial to gain what was necessary to be competitive.
On a visit to the northwest of England between races, Fernando Alonso is about to learn how some of his competitive advantage is created and maintained. He's not the first VIP to be shown round at Thornton, but he knows better than anyone what the developments produced in the lab can deliver on the track. The fuel formulators have been under particular pressure this season, but for the developers of new lubricants too, the search for improvement is rigorous and relentless.
Lubricant isn't just a fluid that's thrown in afterwards, it's a component like a piston or a conrod or a camshaft.
Inside the engine, the lubricant forms a film to protect moving parts like the pistons, camshaft and crankshaft bearings, while keeping to an absolute minimum the losses of energy these areas may produce.
The art is, first of all, getting the performance as high as possible with just enough protection to get to the end of the race with a suitable margin for safety.
Fuel formulators have had more latitude in the design of their new products this year, but ultimately their parameters are fixed. The lubricant developers have no such constraints. Formula One cars use a system called a dry sump, which pumps oil around the engine via a separate oil tank. It's more efficient than the wet sump in the average road car, but it also causes engineers one major headache.
There's a lot of chaos going on inside the engine. The oil is thrown around, it picks up air. You want to lubricate with a liquid with the minimum amount of air in as possible, because you want to lubricate with a liquid, not a compressible, spongy material.
Through a combination of additives, engineers can speed up the removal of air bubbles. But they also need to make the oil's passage through the engine as easy as possible.
We're always trying to drive down the viscosity, the thickness of the oil, but not so far that you actually lose protection.
We want it to foam to get to parts of the engine so it's hard to reach. But if there's too much foam, then that stops the lubrication and you don't get your film, so it stops it doing its job.
Like the fuels, new lubricants are tested at Maranello before the best is blended in larger batches at Thornton. But that's not where the relationship ends.
We have the trackside team at every race. Ferrari value this very highly. We call it a blood test.
Every time you go out in your car, we get a sample like this from the garage, and it's always got a number of kilometres on it.
When an engine or a component wears, the metals it wears off end up in the oil, and by analysing that you can tell how fast it's wearing.
If we see something that looks abnormal, we tell Ferrari immediately.
They give us immediate feedback about what they think the problem is.
If you like, it's like an early warning system for what's going on inside your engine.
To be there is unique within that paddock, and that shows the trust, I think, between the two companies.
Shell analyze the oils during the weekend, and obviously it's nice to know what they are finding and what is the situation with our engine that we need to race on Sunday afternoon.
A month after Fernando Alonso's podium finish in Spain, and well into the European leg of the championship, his teammate himself returns home, even if he does end up a long way offshore and even further upstream. Today, it's Felipe Massa who gets an insight into the work of the team's technological partner and how their fuel gets from the rig to the road. His grandfather emigrated to South America from Italy, and he himself speaks Italian well, but Massa is a Brazilian and proud of it.
It's always fantastic to go home, the place you're born and the place you grow. And it's always nice to go home and to see how important is your country as well, how many important things we have, and how important it is also to the other countries as well.
The Fluminense is a vast floating oil platform the size of 4 football pitches. To many of its workers, Massa's brilliant driving in the 2008 championship, when he was denied the title by Lewis Hamilton on the final day, have made him a national hero. Ferrari and their technological partners are under pressure, but developments are already in the pipeline. In the world of Formula One, nothing stands still for very long. As the events of Ferrari's dramatic season unfold, Mike Evans returns to Maranello. First to look back, then to move forward.
We're well into the season now, and the fuels have behaved very well. We expected some issues with fuel tank temperatures, but those have not manifested themselves, so that's gone well. The overall efficiency of the fuel is very, very good, so we are getting good fuel consumption, so we are now looking at developing fuels for the latter part of the season.
2 batches of the fuels used in Bahrain have been made so far, but since then Mike and his team have been focusing on new formulations. The challenge now is to get them tested, approved and blended in larger quantities as soon as possible.
Towards the second half of the season, there are several challenging circuits coming along. We are mindful that probably somewhere like Singapore and Suzuka are very, very long races, so it'll stretch the cars, see how good their fuel efficiency is. We're hard at work developing products for those final races.
On the lubricant side too, the demand for improvement remains constant, even if the time available does not.
The level of response we have to achieve in Formula One is really very fast. As we always know, Ferrari really want to win their home race at Monza, so in addition to all the work that they've been doing in the areas that they can improve, they want to take everything they can, and that includes engine lubricant. And we have a new candidate engine lubricant which we've been testing here in the labs. The oil's gone out to Maranello for testing in the engine there. There's a power improvement that's significant and worth having. Those tests looks like they will just be completed in time. Because of the time difference, we all actually have to send the oil out in advance of knowing whether it is approved or not. But if it is approved, then it will go into the car and it'll be used in Monza.
The rewards for the team's hard work are swift and spectacular. 3 consecutive Grand Prix victories. So successful is Ferrari's comeback that Fernando Alonso needs only to finish second in the final race of the season to win the Drivers' Championship. But despite his best efforts in Abu Dhabi, the Spaniard can finish only 7th. And after a brilliantly fought campaign, misses out on his 3rd championship title by just 4 points. For all the disappointment of its finale, the 2010 season represents a spectacular return to form for Ferrari and a vivid illustration of its commitment, in tandem with its long-term partner, to unstinting technological innovation. With Formula One competition so tight, the slightest improvement to a car's aerodynamics or chassis can create a decisive advantage. The difference between winning and losing. But where fuels and lubricants are concerned, as this story in 2010 suggests, the drive to deliver performance benefits is no less intense.
I think looking at the end of the season, we do feel that we've made a significant contribution. It's one little brick in a great big wall of improvements that Ferrari have made, but they all add up together.
To develop a competitive engine, to have a reliable and powerful unit, you need to develop, together with a partner, lubricants and fuel that fits perfectly your engine. And for this you need a long-term partnership. The advantage for Ferrari to have such a long-term technical partner is that a really important thing for us.
For the suppliers of fuel, lubricants and their technologies, the use of biocomponents will be a more prominent feature of the Formula One landscape. For them, the challenges ahead present the chance to reassess their priorities, regroup and revitalize their relationships with the sport, their teams and their customers.
My response to the technical regulations will eventually be translated into things that we can use on the road. You may see it first in Formula One in better power, but in the road car you're looking for better fuel economy, better mileage from your fuel and lower CO2 emissions.
Llega el momento de la despedida y con él el agradecimiento de cada semana, porque hayas compartido conmigo esta media hora en la cual los autos de carrera son los grandes protagonistas y en los cuales cada semana le rendimos culto a nuestra reina, que es la imagen y que en estos 15 años nos ha acompañado y de alguna manera nos ha hecho disfrutar frente a la tele. Para la semana que viene te estaré proponiendo la prueba de un auto, te estaré proponiendo todo lo que está pasando en el campeonato mundial de rally, te estaré proponiendo algunas cosas que pasaron en Ginebra, el primer salón del automóvil en Europa. En definitiva, te estaré proponiendo un nuevo Power Sport con todo lo que ello significa. Por hoy, simplemente gracias. Muchísimas gracias por haberme dejado entrar en tu casa y será hasta dentro de 7 días nada más. Chao.